The sensation was of a body in freefall. A lack of oxygen blurred the edges of consciousness, siphoning the strength from his limbs. After a violent lurch, his phone slipped from his grasp. He reached for it on instinct, but his fingers closed around something soft and warm instead. It was an odd texture to find on an airplane. In the dead silent cabin, a voice cut through the stillness, asking how long he planned to hold on. He wondered who could possibly be speaking when everyone else was surely unconscious. The voice repeated itself, questioning if he was deaf, or if perhaps he simply didn't want to let go. It came again, this time closer, sharper, and with a familiarity that was deeply unsettling. His sluggish brain finally placed it. It was Ethan's voice, the same one he had just been furiously typing messages to, all bravado now gone. In these final moments, he had to admit his nonchalance was a lie. The regret was so potent it was causing him to hallucinate. Yet, the sound had a distant quality, a youthful edge that felt like a memory. He tried to place it, his mind clouded and slow. A sudden tug on his arm was like being pulled from deep water. With a gasp, his eyes flew open, and he saw the person in front of him. The arrogant tilt of an eyebrow, a smile that was all sharp edges and confidence, a face that was strikingly handsome. Ethan. In an instant, his senses came rushing back. The deafening drone of cicadas in the summer heat, the rich scent of sun-baked wood floors, the slow trickle of sweat from his forehead, and the undeniable fact that he was clutching Ethan's hand. He questioned if this was some kind of illusion. Ethan wondered aloud if Leo, of all people, was about to confess his feelings for him. It was no illusion. He slowly retracted his hand, staring at his palm. The skin was a healthy pink, his pulse thrumming steadily beneath it. He could clench and unclench his fist, in full control of his own body. Ethan clicked his tongue, remarking that burying his nose in books had finally turned him into a genuine idiot. Leo looked up and saw the blue of the school's crest on Ethan's polo shirt. It was the summer of 2016. He was a sophomore and Ethan was a senior. They had never gotten along. Leo detested Ethan's flippant, careless attitude towards everything. Ethan, in turn, found Leo to be painfully rigid and dull. The only reason they ever interacted was because Ethan's younger brother, Alex, was Leo's best friend. He often came over to their house after school to study, just like today. Leaning casually against the window frame, Ethan let out a short, derisive laugh, expressing his disgust. Leo followed his gaze down to the small garden below, where Alex was being confessed to by another boy. Of the three brothers, Alex, the youngest, had a delicate charm that attracted many admirers. Ethan muttered about the nerve of someone doing that at their house, calling it sick. He turned his head, his eyes locking onto Leo's, a mocking curl to his lips as he asked for agreement. There was a playful glint in his expression, but his eyes were strangely serious, waiting for an answer. The 17-year-old Leo would have agreed, despite his dislike for Ethan. But the soul inside this body was 25. 8 years had passed, filled with experiences that had changed him. His feelings for Ethan had morphed from annoyance to a deep-seated affection, so powerful that Ethan was the only person on his mind as he faced death. He couldn't bring himself to lie, so he just shook his head, saying he didn't understand the problem. Ethan's expression faltered, a strange shadow falling over his face. He scoffed that bookworms were no fun and turned away, his posture radiating annoyance as he walked out. Leo stood there, a little lost, unsure if this was a second chance or merely a dream. Either way, it meant his 25-year-old self was gone. He wondered what Ethan would feel when he heard the news. Guilt, maybe? After all, The only reason he was on that doomed flight was to attend Ethan's engagement party. The 18-year-old Ethan had not yet entered into any engagements. He was, however, furious that Leo couldn't return his serve. He shouted, his voice cracking with irritation, asking what was the point of being top of the class if he couldn't hit a simple ball. He yelled that he was practically placing it on the racket for him and asked if his eyes were just for decoration. The noise made Leo's eardrums ache. For some reason, the feeling of imminent death still clung to him, and waves of dizziness washed over him periodically. He lowered his tennis racket and announced he was done playing. Alex came over, attempting to smooth things over. He told Leo not to take his brother seriously, explaining that Ethan had a sharp tongue with everyone, not just him. Leo knew that. Ethan was indiscriminately abrasive, but he seemed to reserve a special kind of venom for Leo. As he sat on a bench, lost in thought, a bottle of water was tossed into his lap. He fumbled it and it fell to the ground. A sharp hiss of annoyance came from above. Ethan bent down, picked it up, and offered it again. He told Leo to drink something, commenting on how pale he was, so pale that he looked like he might actually die. When Leo didn't move, Ethan cursed under his breath, twisted the cap off, and forcefully pushed the bottle into his hand, sarcastically asking if he needed to be fed. Leo complied, lifting the bottle and taking a sip. It was lemon-lime Gatorade. Sweet. Ethan's expression softened, as if satisfied. He took Leo's racket, set it aside, and sat down next to him, lazily watching the other two play. He asked if Leo had been up until the early hours again, working on his stupid problem sets. Their houses were adjacent, their bedroom windows separated only by a narrow flower bed. He remarked that he could see Leo's light on whenever he happened to glance over. He questioned why Leo couldn't just go to sleep earlier, sarcastically wondering if those worksheets were the only thing keeping him at the top of the class. The words were harsh. Leo was not one to take things lying down and usually had a sharp retort for Ethan. He should have fired back, asking if Ethan was hoping he'd fail. But as he opened his mouth, the words caught in his throat. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "Are you worried about me?" At his words, Ethan's pupils contracted. He shot up from the bench as if shocked. "Bullshit," he snapped, before hastily retreating to the court, leaving that single word hanging in the air. He seemed completely thrown off, missing every single one of Alex's serves. Leo slowly screwed the cap back on the bottle, his heart hammering against his ribs. He wondered if this was a chance from fate to fix his regrets, or perhaps to see things he had previously missed. Like that conversation. As a teenager, he would have only felt attacked and mocked. It never would have occurred to him that Ethan was just being awkward, hiding his concern behind a wall of insults. He pressed a hand to his chest, taking a deep breath to calm the overwhelming sense of elation. Ethan suddenly ran back, his voice tight with alarm, asking if Leo was feeling sick. Leo shook his head. The sunlight was blinding. If he could live his life over, he thought, maybe he and Ethan. He fell asleep filled with infinite hope for this second chance. He woke up to the sight of a college dormitory ceiling. Thinking he was mistaken, he blinked, then opened his eyes again. It was still the dorm room. He lay motionless as a dreadful, unwelcome realization crept over him like cold moss. His mind buzzed, and his blood ran cold. It wasn't a second chance, nor was it a dream. It was a dying man's reverie, a slideshow of memories before the end. Fate hadn't been kind. No miracle had occurred. He was still heading towards a predetermined death, powerless to change a thing. Alex tapped on his bed frame, telling him they were heading straight to his place after their afternoon class. Leo stiffly turned on his phone. The screen displayed a reminder for Alex's birthday. He would always remember this day. Halfway through Alex's party, the power went out across the entire neighborhood. After a long wait, it became clear the repair crew wasn't coming anytime soon. As Leo fumbled his way home in the dark, Ethan followed behind to see him safely there. Ethan's voice cut through the darkness, asking if Leo heard that, the same words as in his memory. They had been making out. Leo opened his front door and crouched in the entryway, fumbling for his shoes. He told himself it was normal. They were a couple. Alex had started dating his roommate in their first year, and their relationship was serious. Leo was used to their casual displays of affection. Ethan showed no intention of leaving. He leaned against the doorframe, his expression unreadable in the gloom. He remembered that Leo had never been kissed, hadn't he? It was unfolding exactly as he recalled. Next, he was supposed to retort defensively, asking what it was to him. Then Ethan would offer, out of pity, to help him out if he begged. The help involved being pinned against a wall and kissed until the power came back on. Afterward, Ethan had explained it away as a spur-of-the-moment thing, blaming the darkness for heightening his senses and the sounds from Alex's room for provoking him, telling Leo not to think anything of it. Leo's heart, which had been fluttering wildly, had plummeted into silence. To hide his disappointment, he had forced a casual agreement, saying it was no big deal for two guys to kiss, like kissing a piece of pork. Back in the memory, Ethan laughed when Leo remained silent. What? Too embarrassed to admit it? No, Leo denied. It's gone. Ethan froze, disbelieving. He demanded to know with whom, asking if Leo was in a relationship. Then he answered his own question, saying it was impossible since Alex had told him Leo was single. He then mockingly asked if Leo was referring to that time in kindergarten with some girl in pigtails, dismissing it as not a real first kiss. A real kiss, he began, had to be with someone you like. His voice trailed off. One thing Ethan had said was right. Darkness amplified perception. Leo could clearly feel the momentary disruption in Ethan's breathing. He feigned a moment of realization. Oh, so that's how it is. Then I guess it's still there. What's the problem? Ethan fell silent. After a long moment, he stammered, so, Do you need me to? Need you to what? He went quiet again, then took a deep breath. He asked if hearing them didn't give Leo a certain urge to kiss someone too. Leo stared in his direction and heard himself say, no. He wanted to, desperately. But he also knew that no matter what he chose to do in this scene, it wouldn't change the future. But if it was meaningless anyway, he wanted to confirm that his feelings over the years hadn't been entirely one-sided. Ethan had lost his excuse. They stood in a stalemate. Leo was the first to relent. All right, maybe a little. But like you said, it only counts if it's with someone you like. Am I someone you like? You can imagine I'm someone you like, Ethan said, moving closer, his warm breath ghosting over Leo's skin. Like that girl from your club. You're interested in her, right? He mentioned hearing that Leo had taken her out several times but still hadn't made a move. The girl from his club? It had been so many years since graduation that he had almost forgotten she existed. He vaguely recalled being on a team with her for a competition, but they had no other connection. Got it? Ethan's hand came up, his fingers gripping Leo's chin with a surprising amount of force. It's not. A faint click sounded from upstairs, and the next second, the world was flooded with light. Leo squeezed his eyes shut instinctively. The lights were on. Ethan stared at him, his gaze intense and dark. He raised a hand and covered Leo's eyes. They're not on. Warm, soft lips pressed against his, moving slowly, then deepening the kiss. Leo wanted to ask him if his past, awkward self had missed so many signs. When did you start to like me? Why couldn't we have been braver? But it was all too late. He couldn't bring himself to push Ethan away. He decided he would ask when it was over. After this kiss, he would properly confess his feelings. That way, even if they couldn't be together, he would have no regrets. But when he opened his eyes, he was no longer in the entryway. A colleague was helping him toward a hotel room, and behind them, he heard Ethan's voice asking why he had drunk so much. His colleague explained that the client was a heavy drinker and impossible to refuse. Recognizing Ethan, the colleague handed Leo over and left, reassured. Ethan supported him with one arm while fumbling with the keycard. Leo buried his face in Ethan's shoulder, inhaling a faint, clean scent. Ethan asked if he could still walk. Leo mumbled an incoherent reply. Ethan cursed him for not knowing his own limits, then simply used his body to push the door open and scooped him up. His arms were strong, his chest solid. It was only when Ethan placed him on the edge of the bed that Leo spoke. "I'm not drunk." "Yeah, right, you're not drunk," Ethan replied dismissively. He placed Leo on the bed and reached to loosen his tie, but his hands froze. He realized Leo was telling the truth. His eyes were clear, and he was even smiling at him. Ethan didn't know that for many, many nights, Leo had relied on alcohol to chase him from his dreams. His tolerance was higher than anyone knew. The last time this had happened, Leo had pretended to be drunk. This time, he didn't want to pretend anymore. Ethan demanded to know why he had been clinging to that man like a dead weight. Leo explained he was just trying to appear dedicated, hoping for a promotion. Ethan let out a short, sharp sound. "You've gotten cunning. A real actor." He pulled a chair over and sat down. "You even fooled me. I ordered you some soup to sober you up." Sobering soup? Leo didn't remember that part. Back then, he had been a nervous wreck, his mind consumed with how to get Ethan to take his clothes off. He had failed spectacularly. Not only did Ethan not undress him, he had rebuttoned Leo's shirt. "You've had too much. Get some sleep," was all he had said before leaving the room. Leo later found out he hadn't left, but had stood guard outside the door all night. Still, being rejected after shamelessly throwing himself at him had been a devastating blow. Not wanting to relive that night, he looked up at Ethan. "So you saw me downstairs in the restaurant?" "Yeah," Ethan admitted freely. "I know that client. He has a bad reputation, goes for both men and women. You need to be careful." "Is that so? Thanks for the..." Ethan had matured. They used to see each other so often that the change wasn't as noticeable. But now, having relived his teenage and college years, the difference was stark. His wild, untamed energy was now contained within a crisp suit and shirt. Leo felt a sense of dislocation. He wondered if Ethan would wear a suit and tie to his engagement party tomorrow. Then he remembered. There was no tomorrow. Ethan waved a hand in front of his face, a faint smile on his lips, asking what he was spacing out about. Leo's gaze fixed on that smile. "You tie your tie really well." Ethan paused, glancing down at his chest. "You think? I thought it was pretty standard." He looked at Leo's collar and chuckled. "If you want me to teach you, just say so." With that, he pulled off his own tie and draped it around Leo's neck. "First like this. Hold it here, wrap it around." Ethan was actually teaching him. But Leo wasn't listening at all. The tie still held Ethan's body heat. It was so warm. Ethan's hands fumbled, losing their rhythm. It was probably the messiest knot he had ever tied. Just then, the room service bell rang. The soup had arrived. He suddenly became very busy. Busy blowing on the soup to cool it, busy scrolling through his phone. busy counting the floors of the building across the street. He was busy doing anything but looking at Leo. When the soup was no longer scalding, he handed it over. "Even if you're not drunk, drink a little. It's good for you." Leo took a sip. "It's not good." Ethan paused, then took the spoon and tasted it himself. "It's fine. Sobering soup always tastes like this." Noticing Leo staring at the spoon, he suddenly grew flustered. "Sorry, I wasn't thinking. I'll go wash it." Leo grabbed his wrist. "Wash what?" "It's dirty now," he replied. "Dirty?" Leo looked at him. "You can't have forgotten. We've kissed." That night the power went out. It would have been better not to mention it. The moment the words were out, Ethan's entire body tensed. His voice strained almost to the breaking point. "Are you still hung up on that?" "I'm sorry. It was just a moment of impulse." If Leo hadn't relived it, he might have believed him. Liar. How could a moment of impulse last that long? Ethan's Adam's apple bobbed, but no words came out. Leo wouldn't stay silent anymore. He wouldn't swallow his words again. His time was running out. He took a deep breath and pressed on. "Why did you lie to me?" Ethan didn't answer. Wherever his gaze drifted, Leo would relentlessly move into his line of sight. Trapped, Ethan closed his eyes. "Because after that night, you ignored me for 3 days. You were clearly home but said you were out. I waited outside your house, refusing to leave, until I heard you say it was disgusting. I didn't want us to become strangers." Leo stared, stunned. "No, it wasn't like that. Why didn't you just ask me what I thought?" "Don't say any more, Leo," Ethan pleaded, his voice trembling. "Please, my feelings haven't changed since then. Can we just leave it like this?" They would just leave it like this. The misunderstanding, allowed to fester in silence and avoidance, would grow into a chasm, and the best years of their youth would fall into it. They should have been together. All that time was swallowed by it. But looking back after all these years, the reason was so fragile it was laughable. "Ethan, the truth is, I was so excited that night I got a high fever from standing out on the balcony in the cold. I looked terrible, all pale and haggard, and I didn't want you to see me like that. I didn't know how to face you, so I avoided you for a few days. As for hearing me say, 'disgusting,' I honestly don't remember saying that, but it was probably because of the herbal medicine our housekeeper was brewing for me. She made it every day that week, and the smell made me sick." Later, when he had finally sorted out his feelings, all he heard from Ethan was a casual dismissal. A moment of impulse. People who aren't honest are punished harshly by fate. Ethan's hands hung at his sides, his expression unreadable. It wasn't the joy of a requited crush, nor the regret of a resolved misunderstanding. He just looked lost. Leo could empathize. During this replay of his life, he had often felt lost himself. Was that really why they had missed their chance? Such a tiny reason. "Leo, are you sure you're not drunk?" "Ethan, I like you. I have for a very, very long time." Ethan's pupils contracted sharply. Leo wanted to make up for all the kisses they had missed over the years, but one night wasn't nearly enough. The time was too short. "Leo, you should rest." He couldn't rest. Ethan didn't understand. This was the last stop on his final journey. After Ethan had rejected his drunken advances that night, he had been so devastated that even seeing his name would cause a jolt of panic. He had requested a work transfer, moving to a city that had nothing to do with Ethan. Under a self-imposed blackout, he heard nothing about him for over half a year, until Alex passed through on a business trip and mentioned casually, "My brother's getting married next month. Are you coming back for it?" Leo had dropped his coffee cup, the ceramic shattering on the cafe floor. He had bent down frantically to pick up the pieces, only to stand up and hit his head on the table. He ended up on the floor amidst the mess, his head throbbing. Alex had looked at him with concern. "Are you okay?" No, he wasn't okay. He would never be okay again. "Why are you crying?" The hotel bed was a mess. Ethan pulled him up anxiously. "Does it hurt?" Leo was crying too hard to answer. "Ethan, I'm here. I'm here." He reached over to the nightstand for the tissue box, gently kissing and wiping away his tears. Next time I'll be better prepared." "When is next time?" "Tomorrow. Come to my place after work. I learned how to make those sweet and sour ribs you like. Your save file on the game is still there. I haven't touched it." "Okay. It won't hurt tomorrow, I promise." "Okay." But his head hurt so much right now. A ringing that was becoming unbearable. Was the plane about to crash? He clung to Ethan in terror. "I'm so scared. I don't want to die." Ethan didn't answer him again. Just before dawn, it began to rain. A soft, persistent drizzle. The wedding planner called, gently suggesting that if the rain didn't stop by the afternoon, they would have to abandon the outdoor ceremony and switch to Plan B. "No problem, you handle it," Ethan said, ending the call and picking up his glass. The clink of ice against the crystal was sharp, but it did nothing to soothe his agitation. A suffocating tightness had been building in his chest all morning, as if something heavy was pressing down on him, forcing him to take deep breaths to find relief. He rubbed his temples, a throbbing pulse he couldn't ignore. He stood up abruptly, grabbing his jacket. "I'm gonna pick up Leo." Alex was silent for a few seconds on the other end of the line. "It's not even dawn. He's probably not even awake. If you're that nervous, go for a run." "Already did. 8 laps. You watch over things here." "I'm leaving." The garage door slowly rose, and Ethan started the car, the world outside a blur of rain. Alex sighed. "What took you so long?" "Idiot." But for once, Ethan didn't argue. He even agreed. "That's why I'm going early this time." He arrived at the airport quickly. He thought waiting here might calm his nerves, but sitting in the driver's seat, the sense of unease only intensified. He repeatedly checked the flight status on his app. It had already taken off. He would see him in a few hours. He couldn't sit still. He took out a cloth and, for what felt like the 100th time, wiped down the passenger seat. Then, considering that Leo might not want to sit next to him, he climbed into the back and started wiping there too. Halfway through, he decided the car's air freshener was too strong. He had spent ages choosing it, but now it seemed inferior to one of the other options. There was still time. He floored it to the specialty store and, just in case, bought several of the other scents. After such a long flight, Leo probably wouldn't have an appetite. He bought a bag of beef jerky, but that might make him thirsty, so he needed to get a drink too. He spotted a fruit stand. Fresh fruit seemed like a better choice than coffee or tea that would go stale. While Ethan was picking out some fruit, the owner was chatting with a neighbor, and a child was whining. Annoyed, the owner tossed his phone to the kid, who immediately fell silent, replaced by the sound of a viral TikTok song. A few minutes later, the child started shouting again, "Mommy, the airplane is falling." Ethan had only ever bought one lottery ticket in his life. It was for Leo. He had scoffed at the time, telling Leo he didn't need the money. Leo, focused on checking the numbers, had said he didn't understand. "This is a good luck detector. If I win, I'm gonna do something big." Ethan had asked what big thing he was planning. Leo never answered. He didn't win. But this time, Ethan checked the numbers. Every single digit, every letter matched. The flight number he knew by heart and the one on the news. They matched. He woke with a splitting headache. Staring at the ceiling, he couldn't move. He wondered why a dead body felt so heavy. Shouldn't he be floating around freely? He strained, trying to will himself to float. Nothing. He continued to stare at the ceiling, wondering if ghosts could use GPS. He had a terrible sense of direction. By the time he managed to float to Ethan's engagement party, would the reception be over? Damn it, he wanted to see Ethan in a suit and tie. Preferably a dark gray flannel suit, with a silver pattern tie, yes, just like the one he was seeing now. But the Windsor knot was all wrong, loose and crooked. His gaze traveled up to the man's face. The Adam's apple bobbed. "You're awake?" Before he could process it, a crowd of people swarmed around him. His vision filled with faces. They were all familiar, even his parents who hadn't spoken to him in years. Was the life flashing before his eyes sequence still going? He was baffled. He didn't remember this scene, unless something gathered at the corners of his eyes. He blinked, and warm moisture trickled down his cheeks. Could it be that everyone was dead? A voice cried out that he was crying and to call a doctor. Someone else asked if he could hear them, telling him to lift his hand if he could. He tried, but his arm wouldn't budge. A sob broke out from someone nearby. "Sover, Leo's gone deaf." Amidst the clamor, a familiar voice cut through. "Quiet down. All of you, get out for a minute." It was Ethan. Leo stared at him, watching as he bent down and gently stroked his head. "Don't panic. You can't move for now because of the prolonged lack of oxygen. It'll get better." If Ethan said it would get better, then it would. 2 days later, he was taking his first steps. He hadn't died. The co-pilot, who had regained consciousness, had worked with the autopilot to perform a miraculous, last-ditch ascent. But there were after effects. He often forgot what he had just said, repeating things over and over. "I actually brought you all gifts, but I don't know where they are now." Ethan, who was cutting an apple, paused for a fraction of a second, and Leo realized he must have said this before. Ethan nodded, pretending it was the first time he'd heard it. "It's okay. That's not important. As long as you're safe." Leo took a small bite, then asked hesitantly, "The engagement party?" "Yes, it's postponed." "Postponed, not canceled." He swallowed the sweet fruit and mumbled an apology. "I'm sorry, it's all my fault. Stop talking nonsense. Open your mouth." Ethan had been so gentle these past few days, so unfamiliar. Hearing that sharp tone was actually a comfort. Right, Ethan was pretty gentle in bed, too. Chewing on the apple, he silently savored the memory of their night in the hotel room. "Why is your face red? Is it hot in here?" Ethan reached out and placed a hand on his forehead. Leo couldn't help but think of the dark entryway during the blackout. His face probably flushed an even deeper red. Ethan said he would call a nurse to check his temperature. As he watched him pull out his phone, Leo remembered something important. "Ethan, where's my phone? It's been in an evidence bag. The battery is probably dead." But when they plugged it in, the screen remained black. "It must be broken. I'll get you a new one later." It wasn't about getting a new one. He needed to know if those voice messages had sent. He had been connected to the in-flight Wi-Fi, but he hadn't checked if it was working. In his heart, he was already content. Those relived moments, however brief, had left him without regrets. He could even genuinely wish Ethan and his fiancée happiness. Provided, of course, that he never heard those 3 messages. "Ethan, hold on." He knew he shouldn't open this Pandora's box. He now understood Ethan's old fear of saying the wrong thing, of staying within the safe confines of friendship. That person, what are they like? He was brave, but not that brave. Who? Ethan asked, then understood. She's fine. A business partner of my family's. Leo hesitated, then gathered his courage again. Fine as in, you have a good relationship? The terms are good. We're planning some deeper collaborations that require a more solid relationship to support them. So it was a business marriage. The most rebellious of the three brothers was, in the end, the most obedient. But after only half a year of no contact, Leo didn't believe Ethan would change his mind so easily. His compliance was most likely a result of Leo's near-total radio silence. The thought made him uneasy. How long does the collaboration last? It's a long-term project. That was worse. It was no different from Ethan selling himself out in despair. Leo retreated under the covers, curling up like a turtle. I'm a little tired. Sleep was impossible. The moment he closed his eyes, Ethan appeared in his dreams. He got out of bed and shuffled toward the nurse's station. Can I have some alcohol? The nurse's eyes widened. If you want me to write a formal apology, just say so. So it was just a formal apology. In that case, you can start writing now. She grabbed him as he tried to sneak off to the convenience store. Sleeping pills, please. He offered to write the report for her, boasting that he was good at it, having written all of Alex's apologies when they were younger. It's a liability issue. I'll lose my job. He backed down, not wanting to cause trouble. He trudged back to his room, too afraid to sleep. After pacing for a bit, he stopped in front of the bathroom. If he couldn't have a drink, he would find another way to numb his nerves. He started trying to recall Ethan's moves from that night. Damn it. They were both men, so why was his first instinct to arch his back, while Leo's was just to stick his butt out? Even worse, he replayed every single detail in his mind and still couldn't replicate the feeling. Doing it himself wasn't working. Forget it. As he was about to straighten up, his legs suddenly gave out and he pitched sideways. His first thought wasn't self-preservation, but an apology to the young nurse. It looked like he was going to cause trouble after all. To survive a plane crash only to die from a fall in the bathroom would surely be recorded as one of the world's most bizarre deaths. But he didn't die. Someone caught him securely. The arms were strong, the chest solid. The only sounds in the bathroom were their two sets of breaths, hanging in an awkward silence. He could have explained it away as a normal physical reaction for a man who's been bedridden, if it weren't for the compromising position he was in. Ethan, let go. He struggled, but Ethan held him tight. Who taught you this? The warm air tickled his ear. To his mortification, he was getting aroused again, but with Ethan right there, he couldn't move. Did you develop this in another city? He belatedly realized Ethan's voice was unusually low, his mood seeming dark. Develop what? He sounded like a CEO giving a business presentation, even when saying something so crude. No one. I cultivated it myself. Ethan let out a soft laugh, helped him straighten up, and turned off the light. Can you even see what you're doing? It sounded like he was offering to help him plow his own field. Leo's head felt dizzy, his body light. He had to say something. So, that person, what are they like? Ethan's movements paused. Leo suddenly realized he had asked this before. No, I mean, where's my phone? He let out a low groan. I bought you a new one. It's on the cabinet. That's not what I meant either. He thought for a moment. Ethan, why are you willing now? Last time you rejected me, left me alone in the hotel. I was so upset. Ethan switched the light back on. The warm yellow glow illuminated the scene. Leo, who is in front of you right now? He had stopped at a very critical point. Leo instinctively rubbed against him. It's you. Who am I? Ethan. Good. It's me. He buried his face in Leo's neck, holding him tight. You weren't lucid then. You couldn't recognize me. I couldn't take advantage of you. Oh, Leo murmured to himself. The truth was, he had been too embarrassed to say his name. But now, he was the one who truly wasn't lucid. He woke to bright daylight. After staring at the ceiling for a while, he turned and saw the new phone on the cabinet. A slow blink. He was screwed. When the nurse came to do her rounds, he shrank under the covers guiltily. Last night His voice was hoarse. She became alert. You didn't secretly drink, did you? He didn't secretly drink. But he did secretly have sex. He clung to the sliver of hope that it had all been a dream. After the nurse left, he secretly pulled down his pants to check if he was still raw. Before he could determine anything, Ethan pushed the door open. Seeing his position, Ethan froze for a second, then raised an eyebrow. So eager in broad daylight? Leo pulled the covers over himself in shame. Can't you fucking knock? I wouldn't get to see this view if I knocked. He set down a food container and reached a hand under the covers. Feeling his weight press down, Leo frantically pushed him away. No, stop. No one can just walk into a VIP room. No one will see. How could he so calmly accept their illicit affair? I mean, this secret, sordid relationship. Stop. Sordid? Ethan's voice turned cold. You're saying that our relationship, knowing each other since we were kids, secretly loving each other, and finally getting together naturally, is sordid? He didn't quite understand what Ethan was saying. Ethan stared at his face, his expression growing serious. You've forgotten again, haven't you? Leo opened his mouth, confused. Huh? Forgotten what? Ethan sighed softly, opened the voice memo app on his phone, and pressed play. Leo's voice filled the room, raspy and tinged with tears. Ethan, I like you. I have for a very, very long time. What? This was beyond his comprehension. When did I say that? The day after you woke up. But the timestamp on the voice memo was from 6 months ago. But I just woke up 3 days ago. It's been 6 months. Ethan put his phone away and leaned down to kiss him. It's okay. You haven't missed anything. Everything will be all right. His after effects never went away. The PTSD caused intermittent amnesia about recent events, leaving him convinced he was still living in the immediate aftermath of the accident. We're together now, so what about your family? My family? They wholeheartedly approve. But what about the marriage alliance? Of course it's still on. Business is important. Cheater, he gasped. Adulterer. Scum. Ethan's eyes narrowed suspiciously. You forgot this too? Leo faltered, hesitating. I didn't forget. You're engaged. She's your family's business partner. The terms are good. You need a long-term collaboration. Yes, you remember that part perfectly. Still a cheater. A huge scumbag. I want to break up. But you've remembered the most important part wrong. Ethan pulled up a photo and showed it to him. The one in the marriage alliance is my older brother. Leo stared at the phone, feeling like something was off. In his memory, Alex hadn't said it was their older brother. It doesn't matter. It's all settled now. Right? Settled. He finally found the courage to ask. Did you ever get my voice messages? Voice messages? Ethan smiled. What, were you sending me dirty talk? He soon noticed that the new phone was still in its box. Leo secretly opened Ethan's pinned chat. The last message was from over a year ago, from Ethan. Call me if you don't feel well. I'm outside the door. Well, what did you send? Ethan trapped him under the blanket. Tell me. Leo mimicked his tone. It doesn't matter. I've already started over. Started over? What started over? I haven't touched your game save file. We can keep playing when you get out of the hospital next month. Okay. He paused. What if I forget again next month? It doesn't matter. As long as you remember me, and remember that I will always love you.